These scamming doctors are the exact type of people you don't want treating you or anyone you know. Let's dive right into their stories. Number 5. All tired out. Oneal Ron Morris, also known as the Duchess, was a transgender con artist and self-proclaimed doctor who injected various industrial substances into people's behinds in order to give them a bigger caboose. Morris used a cocktail of various substances, including cement, superglue, and fix-a-flat tire inflator, giving new meaning to the term having a flat butt. Morris had already been caught once before for practicing medicine without a license. However, she continued to operate illegally, often using fake names and advertisements to lure customers. Morris's biggest scam was injecting industrial-grade silicone into people's behinds as part of an enhancement procedure. Even performed under a doctor's care, medical-grade silicone is a dangerous substance that can lead to serious health consequences and isn't FDA recommended for beauty fillers. This is also a rare instance where contracting authorities overlaps with the FDA, and they also recommend against using industrial-grade silicone as beauty fillers. Finally, they both agree on something. Morris was injecting her victims with silicone she purchased at her local Home Depot, since they probably had better prices than Lowe's. Dubbed the toxic tush doctor, she was convicted of manslaughter after one of her clients passed from complications stemming from the injections they received. During her trial, it was revealed that Morris had placed ads on sites like Craigslist and Backpage offering, quote, buttocks enhancement services. Her victims would often pay upwards of $2,000 for the procedure. Many victims came forward with stories of how Morris had injected them with the industrial-grade silicone, often without anesthesia. One victim spoke of how she was left with lumps and bumps all over her behind, and another said she was in so much pain that she couldn't sit down for weeks. In total, Morris is believed to have injected more than 50 people with industrial silicone. Morris began her career sometime around 2006 when she injected a woman's butt with a combination of cement, fix-a-flat tire sealant, and superglue. The woman soon developed necrosis, which is basically that part of the body decaying or dying. She had to have surgery to remove the injection. Another of Morris's victims stated that she had received injections from Morris on 3 separate occasions. The first time was in 2007, and it was a mixture of silicone and an unknown substance. The second time was in 2008, and it again was silicone and an unknown substance. The third time was in 2009, and it was a combination of crazy glue, super glue, liquid nails adhesive remover, and cement mix. Unfortunately, this victim also developed necrosis and had to have surgery to correct the damage done by Morris's treatments. In the end, Morris was sentenced to 10 years in prison, though she will only serve 4 years due to a plea deal. However, many believe that she deserved much harsher punishment considering the seriousness of her offenses. Her victims were left scarred both physically and emotionally, but at least they can rest assured knowing that the toxic tush doctor is now behind bars where she belongs. Number 4. OBGY No. Dr. Javid Perwaiz was a well-respected OBGYN in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia for nearly 4 decades. But it turns out that all that time, he was preying on his patients just to make a quick buck. Dr. Perwaiz scammed Medicaid by billing for procedures he never performed. But the true horror came when Javid actually did enter the operating room. Over the course of a decade, Dr. Perwaiz performed irreversible hysterectomies, sterilizations, and other surgeries on his patients, in many cases using broken equipment, giving at least 173 women life-altering surgeries. According to prosecutors, Dr. Perwaiz would convince women that they needed certain operations by telling them exaggerated or outright false information about their health. In some cases, he would tell patients that they had cancer or were at risk of developing cancer if they didn't have a hysterectomy or some other surgery immediately. In many instances, the surgeries occurred within days of the false diagnosis. Sadly, these surgeries were completely unnecessary, put the women's health at risk, and changed their lives in a way that cannot be undone. The equipment Dr. Perwaiz used was often damaged or wasn't sterilized, and he regularly reused single-use gloves. As a result, many of his patients suffered complications from the surgeries, some of which were life-threatening, leaving many with irreparable damage. 25 of Dr. Perwaiz's patients testified at his sentencing hearing, sharing their stories of how Dr. Death, as he'd been dubbed, had ruined their lives. One victim shared a story that on Dr. Perwaiz's recommendation, she had a hysterectomy in order to avoid potential cancer, only to learn that the surgery was unnecessary and that she will never be able to have children of her own. Another victim said she also thought Perwaiz was acting in her best interest when he told her that she needed a hysterectomy as well. She has since experienced a myriad of complications due to Dr. Death's handiwork and now has to take medication to control the symptoms for the rest of her life. Many of the women who testified against Dr. Perwaiz said they kept him as their doctor even after their procedures because they trusted him. It wasn't until they started hearing news reports about his criminal activity that they realized how badly they had been harmed. In November 2020, following an expert opinion which deemed a staggering 52 surgical procedures performed were unnecessary, a federal jury convicted Dr. Perwaiz of 52 counts of healthcare fraud and false statements. In total, Dr. Perwaiz was responsible for over $20 million worth of false and fraudulent billings for both himself and the hospitals where he performed the surgeries. What did he trade his victims' ability to ever have children for? Lavish gifts for himself and others, including luxury cars like Bentleys and Ferraris. In April of 2021, Perwaiz was sentenced to 59 years in prison, which meant that at 71 years old, he will likely spend the rest of his life incarcerated. While that may provide a small amount of satisfaction to his victims, no amount of prison time can undo the damage that Perwaiz has caused. Number 3. Dr. Staged. Dr. Sadie Ribeiro was a pain management doctor and surgeon. He's facing up to 10 years in prison for his role in an insurance fraud scheme that bilked millions of dollars from poor and vulnerable patients. Ribeiro pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud in connection with the scheme. Ribeiro enticed more than 400 homeless and drug-addicted patients to submit to surgeries they didn't need so that he and his partner could take payouts from the insurance companies. Ribeiro is the second person to plead guilty in the case. Adrian Alexander, 77, who owned a litigation funding company that was behind the scheme, previously pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. According to a federal indictment, Ribeiro and Alexander spearheaded an extensive insurance fraud scheme through which participants staged trip and fall accidents and subsequently filed fraudulent lawsuits that enriched both men to the tune of $31 million. The patients, many of them homeless or addicted to drugs, were enticed with small sums of money to participate in the scheme and then underwent unnecessary back surgeries and other medical procedures so that Ribeiro and his partners could collect insurance payouts. Patients were also instructed to receive ongoing medical care and chiropractic treatment from specific medical professionals, usually Ribeiro, under the guise that it was required for their lawsuit cases. In some cases, the defendants even created fake x-rays purporting to show disc herniation stems to justify lumbar spinal fusions on otherwise healthy people as young as 20 years old. This greedy criminal offense not only took advantage of people who could ill afford it, but put their lives at real risk. Victims often had little choice other than to comply so long as they continued to receive benefits like food, clothing, and other assistance. From 2015 until 2018, more than 400 people participated in the scheme, many of them recruited while receiving assistance at homeless shelters around New York City. Many were drug addicts or homeless with mental issues. Alexander typically funded each personal injury lawsuit by loaning participants $30,000 to cover living expenses, court fees, costs related to surgical bills, and other associated costs. Invariably, those loans carried extraordinarily high annual percentage rates, often 100% and upward. As a result, almost all of any settlement or damages awarded went towards satisfying the loan, leaving participants with little or no funds. Ribeiro admitted that he performed close to 200 surgeries on patients who were part of the scheme and also paid kickbacks for patient referrals. In addition to facing up to 10 years in prison, Ribeiro has agreed to forfeit more than $500,000 to the U.S. government and make a restitution payment of nearly $4 million. Ribeiro is scheduled to be sentenced on January 5th, 2023, and Alexander on November 30 of this year. Number 2. Masquerading. Sarah Kane was banned from every hospital in the UK after being caught posing as a doctor twice. Most recently, she avoided jail time by admitting to the charges of impersonating a doctor and theft of medical equipment. Kane had been masquerading as a doctor for some time, even going so far as to post pictures of herself in scrubs on Facebook with captions like, "Work can be a time for pulling faces." Neighbors interviewed after her guilty plea said that they had no idea she wasn't actually a doctor. One close friend described her as a Walter Mitty type, someone who is prone to wild flights of fancy because she was unsatisfied with her life. Posing as a doctor, Kane was seen by 2 nurses who recognized her from when she had been treated there before. She claimed to be training as part of her doctorate, but it quickly became clear that she didn't really know what she was doing. CCTV footage showed her wandering around the hospital for hours before being confronted by staff and eventually arrested by police. When officers searched her house, they found a trove of medical equipment that she had stolen from the hospital, including surgical scrubs, bandages, syringes, and saline solution. Although she avoided jail time, Kane was fined £440. Thankfully, she never interacted with any patients, just walked around the hospitals aimlessly. No harm, no foul? With all these shady medical professionals running around, the only ones we trust are Dr. Dre and Nurse Slim. Number 1. Off-brand. Sine Marie Brand was a bogus cardiologist who was operating in South Africa. She was arrested after it was discovered that she didn't have the proper medical qualifications to be practicing medicine. Brand was accused of advertising for house calls using the information of a registered physician and also issuing fake prescriptions to people seeking medical attention. Brand could have easily put people's lives in danger had they taken the fake prescriptions or listened to her phony medical advice. Luckily, she was arrested before anyone was harmed. Police were first tipped off by a patient who grew suspicious after receiving a prescription from Brand. Brand initially denied any wrongdoing, but soon began to change her story as inconsistencies were discovered, such as claiming an actual residence rather than crashing on a former cellmate's couch. Brand also failed to appear in court for one of the bail hearings, and a warrant for her arrest was issued. On what was expected to be her last bail application, Brand suddenly announced her intention to plead guilty to all the charges against her. Seeing as she pleaded guilty, the judge found Brand guilty on 10 counts of violating medical practice laws and 1 count of fraud. Brand was sentenced to 2 years in prison, and her case has been widely publicized in order to warn the public about fake physicians. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather do: go to the dentist or go run a mile.